Rep Radio, an Emory production. Since 2009, our goal has been simple. We support, promote, engage, and inspire the arts community by igniting the ghost light that shines on the stages of the up-and-coming, the unsung heroes, the brilliant writers, and the dynamic designers. Stay tuned. Rep Radio is on the air. On today's podcast, we return with part 2 of my chat with James IJames, director of August Wilson's Gem of the Ocean at Arden Theatre Company. If you haven't listened to part 1, head on over to Broad Street Review podcast and subscribe. James makes everyone think a little bit deeper about the intentions of characters and the worlds they inhabit. We talk about crafting a vision on an already layered piece, sharing that vision with an amazing design team, audience responses, and the through lines of Wilson's work. So here is part 2 of my interview with James IJames. So with all those layers that August Wilson already set in place, we now have to factor in your direction, your vision, and design. And so how do you begin to interpret this piece and create a vision for it that doesn't sort of, undo isn't the word, that doesn't sort of compromise the work that's already done on the page? Yeah. Because we don't get to see the playwright's notes. We don't get to see the stage directions that are in the script and everything. So, we just have this, we have this visual way through it, but in a sense we are observing it with our eyes closed. But it is as close to what he imagined as possible, but using the capabilities of today in this space. So how did you begin to shape your vision and then interpret it with respect to the text?
I mean, I had a lot of really long conversations with Tom Weaver, who knows this canon really, really, really well. And we both were sort of the mind of I remember saying to him, I want to make sure that we foreground the magic, that we don't try to act like this isn't a magical space. And I know that he wanted to create a space that didn't feel grounded in a kind of realism that is recognizable for people. So we, so out of that comes this, this set that has no walls. There were several iterations of that set that we went through. One that's sort of using the industrial feeling of Pittsburgh at that time. We had it was a lot of iron and gravel, and it was a gritty space. It was a sort of treacherous space. And then through conversations, that sort of evolved into this ship sort of sitting in the water that people sort of happen to live in. That is, it feels like a ship to me. It's it's got a bird's nest. It feels like, it could take off, because we knew that we wanted the house to lead to the ritual in the middle of the second act. So we knew that we wanted it to be able to do that.
Yeah.
So that's how we got to that design with sound. I wanted to orally always be reminding the audience of the fact that they're in the present, watching something in the past, but that these things aren't that different.
Yeah.
So if you keep, sort of bringing the present into the conversation of the watching, you have to grapple with, like, well, when he's talking about shooting a young boy for stealing something, what does that remind me of?
Yeah.
And the way Daniel Eisen achieves this in a lot of ways is, like, all of that guitar music he played, like, he played it, it's his original stuff. It's not sort of recorded. It doesn't have a grainy quality to it to make it sound like it's from a different time.
Yeah.
It's being made right now with the reference of another time. I also had this idea that I wanted the piece to feel like when the audience sits down, the curtain speech is done, sonically I wanted us to start actually further back in time than the play even starts, move to the present moment, experience the play as the present, and then have the end of the play with that opening of that door take us from that present moment to something that we recognize as the present. And having everything in as our present, I should say, and have everything in the production sort of be leading us to those events. There's like, three sort of technical events of the play that are sort of tethered together to lead the audience to what Citizen does at the end, which I think is not the most important thing, but like the charge for the audience.
Yeah.
Is what are you going to carry? Because she keeps talking about it ain't heavy. She tells Black Mary, you think it's too heavy. I'm carrying it. And that's, I think that's so powerful. And it's a thing that I kind of let myself forget sometimes in this play. I think that was another reason why I didn't talk about it much. It was like making me remember. Making me go back and pick up the stuff that I sort of set down so that I can move through white spaces with ease.
Yeah. Yes.
As an example of, like, and like having to pick it back up and go right.
Yeah.
I need this to be. And then like an approach to acting that's deeply grounded in realism. So you put all of those things together and you would think that would create a really disjointed event. And I think in the first seconds of the piece, because we're playing with time a little bit in that prologue, we're playing with time. In that first scene, we're playing with time. That time is sort of starting up, and then it's like, oh, and then we're off. The approach to the acting was like, how can we make this muscular, but like really draw people in? Like, how do you grab somebody by the collar and gently bring them closer to your face? So, I mean, like, but I feel like, a lot of the directing is you find the right team of people.
Yes.
LaVon Lindsay did the costumes, and they're beautiful, accurate renderings of that time and that place, but also like really smart about the characters and who they are. We had a bit of a journey with Caesar's costume, because initially we had this idea of him sort of being a lawman, and he sort of looked slightly like, there was a bit of a cowboy almost swagger to what he was doing. And when we got into the space and the costumes, I was like, that's not right. He actually needs to look like he doesn't fit in here. And so that's where the suit came, and that's when the really nice hat with the feather, and the nice shoes, and the handkerchief to wipe off the seat before he sits down. And creating that world where someone can enter and it's like clear that, whoa, he does not belong in this space. And I think the same thing is true of Citizen as well. He comes in and he looks like he's from Alabama.
He's like a bull in a china shop when he gets there.
Yeah. That hat, I love that hat so much. And by opening night, we've been working at it with it through previews, and it was just like a rat's nest by opening night. I was like, maybe we should get, because we have several of them, so we were like, maybe we should get it, put in one of the newer hats, because it was literally starting to fall apart.
Yeah.
But if you find the right people who have the same level of passion and the same commitment to the idea, they make you look better.
Yeah. I like I like Black Mary's moment where she sort of snaps back at Aunt Esther. And Aunt Esther's like, well, what took you so long?
Yeah.
There's just so many good moments in these references, like the conversation about the wall they're building back, out back, and it's like, I mean, I even hear the audience going, and I think that's where Caesar's moment is too, and you're just like,
I never caught that until we were in previews, and I was like, oh, right, we do have an idiot trying to build a wall right now, like, you know. Yeah. I mean, Eli isn't building a wall for the same reasons, but the idea never hit me until people were in the space, and it's like they're the last piece, they're the last character, the audience. Is, you know, we don't know what it is until they show up.
It took me a while. Earlier on in the history of the podcast, we're now in our 9th season.
Whoa! 10. Congratulations.
Yes, I remember saying, how are you so on point right now? You're planning your season so far ahead of time. But this piece enters into the space at the right time. I can point to something in the media that's being talked about that references this, but that is what the audience brings. The audience brings in the relevance.
Yeah, sometimes makes it topical,
But it also just makes us realize that this struggle, these conversations, this discussion is timeless in a way, and we never really get a resolution. So, you know, the whole conversation about reaching for freedom, it's like you don't ever really get it, because let's say if you thought money was going to be your ticket to freedom, now you have the money, and now you're a slave to the money. And everything that it entails, and what is expected of you because you have the money. If you don't have the money, there's an expectation of who you are and who you should be. And then there's this pushback when you're just trying to be you, or even in a sense, just try to figure it out on your own. Don't tell me who I am or what I'm supposed to be doing right now, because you're not in here. You're not living this. Our experiences are so unique that we can't really look to someone else's experience as the actual guide. I mean, it can be a blueprint to understanding, but ultimately we are still going through life in our own way. We're taking bits and pieces from everything that maybe this piece and what it's saying didn't have the opportunity to do. It's, you know, like we're drawing the conversations about the wall and Caesar. You know, August Wilson had had an idea of that, but it's not what we are experiencing today. You know, so it's just interesting that we never just sit with ourselves to say, you know what, we just don't know.
Yeah, but I also feel like, you know, I heard someone somewhere use this analogy about artists, and the idea that, like, artists are supposed to be sort of attuned to what's happening. And they use this example of, like, you know, you're in a hotel room in some exotic place on an island somewhere, and you've got these beautiful glass windows, and suddenly a single bird flies into your window. You're like, oh God, it's an odd thing. You're like, okay. A couple more hit the window. You're like, whoa. Then like 20. They all hit your window. You're like, what's going on? Why are these birds hitting this window? And you look out and you see that there's a typhoon heading in your direction, a huge wave. They feel it. They're like, they felt it before it even like fully formed. And that's what the artist is doing. It's like flying into the window so that the rest of the culture can go, or the rest of society can go, oh, I should be paying attention to this. And I think, you know, if the thing that hit me like a ton of bricks is that the wall thing isn't just topical, it's prophetic. You know, building a wall to try to keep people out. Maybe Eli is wrong about that. Solly says, build a fence. You don't need a wall. Solly says the same thing that Caesar says. You know?
Yeah.
For different reasons, you know? So, like, I look at it as it's hitting people because when he wrote it, had we gone, walls, no, maybe not.
Yeah.
we might be in a slightly different scenario, but
yeah,
or maybe not. I don't know. I do think that artists are trying to be prophets in the society and trying to talk to us about both the present moment we're in, but we have to begin to think about the present moment as a historical moment, because as soon as it's happening, it is also the past.
Yeah.
And August is really good at doing that. I'm talking about him like we're good friends. August. August Wilson is extremely good at.
If you know Mr. Dallas, you're not too far from Mr. Wilson.
I met August Wilson in college, so I've met him, or I met him before he passed away. So
yeah,
it was a brief encounter.
Where was I gonna go? Do you think an African American audience is processing this on a totally different level?
Yes.
Because I feel like in our community, there are people who just get their life off all of this, and I'm just like, I just have this layer where it's just like, yes, I mean, this is, I feel like there's peace is part of me, even though I've never experienced it until now.
Yeah.
So sometimes, like, what is a revelation here that I can actually hear the audience gasp and say, like, whoa, I did not know it was like this. And I'm like, really?
Yeah.
I'm looking around going, I was like, it's just, I guess if you walk through and you just have tunnel vision, you don't see all this stuff that's going on, and you feel like it hasn't, I guess if it hasn't hit home, then you don't really process it. But in the past couple of seasons, I feel like a lot of the work that's been presented on our stages has been like, there's a subset of the audience that's like, it's about time. And then there's this other part of the audience that's like, well, where y'all been?
Yeah. No, I mean, I think, I'm curious about, when I'm talking to my students about how you want a conversation to happen as a theater maker, there's the vertical conversation, which is the conversation between the audience as a collective group of people and the piece of art that they're watching, whether it's a play or an opera or a film or a piece of art on the wall. There's always this sort of vertical relationship to it. And then I like to think about the horizontal relationship or the horizontal conversation, which is something that we don't have a ton of control over, but we can try to shape as artists. So if I walk, into the Philadelphia Museum of Art and I see a woman crying looking at a painting, unless I'm just a heartless person, there's a conversation between me and her that is a step back from the piece of art, but is connected to the piece of art because I'm seeing her process it in her way. And I think the same thing is true in the theater, maybe even more so because you're sitting like inches from someone else who's crying because of something they're watching, and you're not crying, and it's like, well, what is this experience that is not my experience? Yeah. And then hopefully that begins to create some sort of conversation, some sort of dialogue, whether it's just sort of, I see that and then it makes me sort of like process like, why is that not connecting with me in that way? Yeah. Or like did I already process that? Or did I already process that?
And now I'm just receiving this as like, because I've been here.
Like laughter is this really great thing, particularly in plays that deal with race. Yeah. Which the tricky thing about Gem of the Ocean is that while it is dealing with stories of people who are defined by race. The play isn't really about that. The play isn't really about racism. In fact, it's sort of scrubbed pretty clean of any sort of like white gaze. It's really these people sort of grappling with each other. But there's a lot of plays out here that ask these like really intense questions about race, show these really provocative depictions of race, racism, assumptions about race, that then cause some folks, like black folks or First Nation folks, or whoever is in the conversation about race that's happening in front of us, to have one set of experiences, and everyone else to sort of go, I don't know what that is.
Yeah.
And I think that is hopefully going to make them go, I want to know what that is. I may not be able to like fully understand it, but like, why was that funny to you? And I don't get it.
Yeah.
Because there are very few jokes that I can see in a play that's about white people that I don't get. So that river doesn't flow both ways, because we're required on some level to be able to work in this industry to understand these things really deeply. So when I go see a Shakespeare play, I know when it's funny. But sometimes when people go see, name the playwright, it's like, well, I don't know. Why is that funny?
I also feel like I'm processing on a totally different layer, because I'm observing the structure, and I'm not always giving myself to the piece completely, partly because of my role in the community.
Oh, you should stop doing that.
But it's not everything. It's not everything. I feel like, so I definitely understood a conversation I have before the show opens allows me to give myself to the show. But a conversation I have, and I know I'm going to have afterwards, I'm there, like, I'm so glad I don't have to write a review, because I see the reviewers taking notes, and I'm just like, how are you living this moment if you're taking notes? I'm thinking of things in my head, but it's usually informing like some other creative direction I want to go in. And I'm just like, oh wow, that was a great way. That was a good turn of phrase, or that was a great moment. That makes me think of this other thing. I'm going to have to unpack that on my walk home or something like that. So sometimes I'm looking at, like, I definitely remember earlier on I came from production. I was a stage manager all through high school, so I came in looking at the lights and looking at the set design and seeing all those things. That's why I want to get there early, so I can get that out of the way, so it's not, so the set and the design of the production are not in the way of my experience. But I'm also just looking at, for one, just how grateful I am to, specifically in this, to just be experiencing all this talent on stage and all this heart in this production. And I'm just like processing that, but at the same time keeping up with this story and making sure that I've understood all of that's going on there. So there's a whole lot. I guess there's a whole lot that every audience member sort of walks into. It's not always easy, especially when you're running late. I don't know. Try not to run late. So
it's not like watching theater. It's not easy.
No.
So it's not a passive, especially not now.
Yeah. Like I watch movies and break down the script.
You can also pause it and go to the bathroom.
Yes.
Like it's just a complete, unless you're, and I think the other, when you go see a movie in the movie theater, even there people go up and go to the bathroom. They're like, eating. Like it's not,
somebody's kicking your chair.
Someone's kicking your chair. Someone's cell phone's going off. Someone's texting. And in the theater, the minute it's gone, it is gone.
Yeah.
Like, you can't go, oh, I'm going to go back and see that movie down at the Ritz again.
Yeah.
You can't do that and then relive that moment.
Yeah.
It just isn't going to happen. So it takes work. It's not a passive thing.
Especially if a production is well aware of how much it costs. Because you can't just I'm going to go buy 3 more tickets and bring a friend. So I'll process that scene the 3rd time I come see it.
I mean, I'm always like floored when I see people come and see a play and then like immediately fall asleep. I'm like, this is an expensive nap.
Yes.
You know.
They're like, this lighting is good.
And I used to get really bothered by it. Then when I would realize, like, we're in the first scene and that person is asleep. They did not intend to stay awake.
Yes.
Like, their intention was to come here and fall asleep, or they can't. They have an inability to stay awake. Like,
and if you're a subscriber, I want to know why.
Well, because I think on some level, like, theater offers a kind of status to people. Like, it is a status thing. If you can afford to pay to go to see theater, you have access. You have means. You know, it's not. It's not a Netflix membership.
Yes.
You know? So I think that is one of the things, but I think that's one of the things we have to grapple with in the next 10 years, as those folks, for whatever reason, start to not come this often.
Yeah.
What does a theater look like when you don't have 200, 300 people that are saying, yes, we were going to come and see your plays this season, all of them. What do we do?
Yeah.
What does that look like? Does that mean that, you know, we do simpler productions so that we can charge less? Does it mean we do fewer productions? Like, I think these are the questions that the industry is going to have to ask itself sooner versus later.
And it doesn't help that at the most focused on microphone in the country, maybe even the world, never makes a comment about how rich our culture is. You know, like, one thing you could say about Mayor Nutter is he couldn't stop talking about how vibrant Philadelphia was.
Oh, you're talking about
locally?
Yes.
Well, I'm talking about the federal government. But yeah, it's
that
like...
ain't why they brought him in.
I know. But I'm saying...
Like, you asking somebody that they brought in to, like, do some demolition work.
It is still,
to like talk about how lovely the walls are,
but
before they knock them down.
It is still a line item. It's the equivalent of, like, you own a 3-story house and you never walk into the second room on the 3rd floor. It's like, if you never go in there, like, how do you put stuff in there? There's value. You created a room. I mean, there's a room that's allocated to the stuff you put in there. And if the stuff you put in there doesn't mean anything, you know...
That comes and goes. I feel like that's historically, that is always going to happen.
Yeah.
We're going to have moments where he doesn't even go to the Kennedy Center Honors.
That's just crazy.
You know, like, it's not a value.
Yeah.
It's not a value.
The only one that doesn't show up.
And, but it is valuable to a large swath of the population in all different forms.
Yeah.
You know, and not gonna. The devil don't need an advocate. So I'm not gonna go there.
It's like,
I'm just gonna leave that alone.
I shouldn't have went there. Okay, so, what did you? I was going to ask you about the through line, but you touched on it through all of the pieces, particularly with Aunt Esther. What did you learn about this piece that will stay with you, that you didn't intend? Because you did point out some moments that not until previews did it become clear.
Yeah.
But what is something about this piece, this experience that will stay with you moving forward and maybe inform your artistic journey?
There's a couple of things. One is that we are, and by we I mean black people in this country, and I'm going to even expand that out to, like, black people who immigrated to this country post-slavery. Our experience of this country is is such a great example of how do you build a cathedral with nothing? Like, how do you create one of the Earth's most vibrant, powerful, and influential cultures with pig guts and gourds and scraps of cloth that you make into quilts? Like, how do you do that? That's an astonishing feat. And I think I've always had sort of like a peripheral sort of pride around that. Yeah, we did that. But like working on this was like a reminder for me of like, oh right, like that is like there's this. They keep bringing up these pig feet. Black Mary got some pig feet on. It's like I grew up eating pig feet. Like I have no shame around that. But that is ingenuity. That you take something that people cast aside, people throw away, and you make it into
trying
something.
to make a meal out of this.
Yeah, you take the remnants of what you know of your ancestors' music and cadence and rhythms, and you turn that into music that then keeps creating other forms of music of itself. That now is like when we talk about popular music, we're talking about hip hop music.
Yeah.
Like that Ariana Grande album that just came out. Like that doesn't exist without us in this country moving through this country in the way that we have.
Yeah.
And I don't know. I walk around. I went to Morehouse, so I walk around with a kingly manner about myself anyway. But like, it really made me go like, oh right, we are remarkable humans on this planet, and that's not to say that doesn't exist in other cultures, and that doesn't say. I'm not in any way trying to belittle anybody else's experience. But it was a real reminder for me that I am a descendant of people who did that. And I'm here because they survived in order to do that. You know? Yeah. It made me aware of all the Aunt Esthers that have tried to help me figure out what's at the center of my life. Like that's the thing she's trying to give the citizen. It's like, what's at the center of your life? Is it that bucket of nails? Is it working at that particular theater? Is it this particular person saying that what you did is good? Or is it like what's so great about this production that I'm feeling from people who talk to me about it is that it's building a sense of community around it. And I can't talk about this play without talking about all the people that worked on it, because I didn't do it. Like it's dismantled for me this idea of, individualistic. I look at what I accomplished. Look at me, how accomplished I am.
Yeah.
I am simply carrying on a tradition. I am standing side by side with a lot of really other talented people who put their blood, sweat, and tears into this. And that's what I feel like a great theater looks like, is that. So it just reminded me to I was right before I went into rehearsal for this, I was sort of having a little bit of a crisis of spiritual crisis that I still feel like I'm in a bit of, if I'm being completely honest. And I just started thinking about what are the traditions that I carry around with me every day that go way back, I don't even know how far back they go. that is special. Like, that's something I can feel connected to. That's something that I can walk around with a great deal of pride about. This New Year's I made like collard greens and black eyed peas on New Year's Day for the first time for myself.
Mm-hmm.
And fully eating those things going, yep, that's right. I am honoring the ancestors today. Like, to me, that stuff that has, in the last year, become incredibly grounding for me. Yeah. And this play feels like just another step on that personal journey for me of, am I going to carry it? Mm. And, like, this play is, like, teaching me, like, yeah, you don't really have a choice. Yeah.
I don't care if you don't like cornbread or grits. I like them.
Or gospel music or blues. Yes. Or like, struggling with your hair. Like, yes. All of that stuff. Moisturize. All of these things that are just sort of like...
You can still get activator.
Yeah, like that's... I love that this production ends with the song that it ends with.
Yes.
It's unexpected.
Yeah.
And every time I'm in that audience and it comes on, I feel the audience sort of.
Yeah.
But I feel like that song is in direct line with everything we've seen.
Mm-hmm. It's also it's a snap back into present day as well, and maybe that is why I heard all the deep sighs, and they were not sighs of like disappointment,
yeah.
But they were just like, oh, I mean, I was in this moment here, but then as soon as blackout, and then lights up with this track. You're like, oh, wow. This is why I always feel like regional theater needs to carve out the time for people to unpack. I know it's not easy, but even if you just said, we have a little room over there if you want to sit and chat, we're sponsored by who and whatever, so that you can come over here and just sort of continue to engage in this.
I mean, I think we have to be, because that's not going to happen.
I know.
So we have to begin to find how we make those spaces for ourselves.
Yeah.
And I'm real good for what you doing after, you want to go?
Yes.
So that I can have the time to sort of unpack. And usually I'm going with my partner, so like we get a chance to like, what did you think about? Like that, we do it. Mm-hmm. But I hear you, like a communal sort of conversation around it would be like, great.
Yeah.
But I ain't going to do that.
I always say, something like Gem of the Ocean is on stage at Arden Theatre Company, and you get your tickets at Arden Theatre, that's theaterre.org, and you should buy more than one, because theater is more fun with a +1.
I like that.
Because the walk home is just as impactful for me as the experience in the theater has been, and so I have this list. If you can't come, that's all right. I got another +1 I can bring, because I have to go with someone. We have to process this, and I can't just. I mean, I could just walk and talk to myself, but it wouldn't be as fun.
Yeah.
But then you'd be surprised how far you got, and maybe save some money because you didn't have to call a Lyft or get a car. You're like, we walked all the way across town. Yes. James IJames, director of Gem of the Ocean by August Wilson.
Yes.
At Arden Theatre Company. It is on stage with How I Learned What I Learned.
Yes.
As well, and probably by the time you see this, or you hear this, 74 Seconds to Judgment will have taken its final bow. But what a great space to be in at this particular point in time. Wasn't missed on me at all. Just walking in, I'm just like, wow. I'm going to pat somebody on the back.
There were like a few days where they all three were playing at the same time.
Yes, and it was just wonderful to just say, this is what I'd love a new normal to look like and feel like. I'd love to be like, I just can't decide which one to go see tonight.
Yeah.
I'm just going to go see them all.
Yeah.
Because I got to flex
Yeah.
But yes, thank you for coming in to chat with me.
Absolutely.
It's always a pleasure.
Yes.
When I can get you, because you're busy, just like everybody else.
Yeah.
But yes, Gem of the Ocean, definitely an experience you will not want to miss. It is a pleasure to talk to you as always.
Yeah.
Thanks.
Absolutely.
Rep Radio continues to be inspired by our community and listeners like you. We are proud to be an Emory production. Visit us online at em3ry.com. Ride with us. Emory is on the move.